Well, you got the next one. I did the age thing. Yeah, I have more lined up.
Oh,
I can jump in.
I got a million of them. You jump in. Go ahead.
The questions about specifically the career field. And there's again layers to this, but like, hey, if I'm going for SR, should I X? And I think we've covered this fairly extensively. Hey, if you're going in under the current construct until we might go back to GTAP, which is like a guaranteed into a single career field, whatever, and that's fine. But regardless, the beginning of the pipelines are the exact same. And even if you're not going to dive, we're still going to drown you for a while before you get to move on to the next course of the pipeline.
Yep.
So, like hey, if I'm going for SR, should I specifically be doing X, Y, and Z? It's like you should be doing what everybody else is doing and focusing on the next step in front of you and your process. And I think that's what really drives me nuts about it is losing sight of the process and focusing on a specific goal instead of leaving things open and just seeing how good you can get, that type of thing.
Right. Well, and we all do it. Like we get, and it's probably, because of us, we tell people all the time, hey, 5 meter target, keep your head down, closest thing to you. And then simultaneously, I'll say what I'm about to say, but you lose sight of the overall goal. So you get so focused on the next school. I want to graduate. I want to get my beret. That's not the goal. The goal isn't to graduate the pipeline or pass dive school or even get selected. The goal is to become a special operator, doing what you're meant to do, and then giving back to the thing that you're supposed to be giving back to, which is overall the United States of America, the Constitution, and then the military branch of service that you choose and the job that you choose in there. So hopefully all those things align and you find yourself as a special operator, but that should always be the driving force, right? People, and you see it all the time in students, and that's why every single person at every single unit will tell you the first year of a new cone out of the pipeline, right? These guys that can chew glass and crap lightning, they're the physical specimens. They're absolutely unbelievable. They graduated top of their class and got every single award out of the schoolhouse, and they came outperforming everybody at the unit. You know what you see them do during that first year? And they get a little bit unmotivated. They get a little bit out of shape. They get a little bit behind on their training, and then people are looking at them and be like, hey, you need to be a real boy right here. I'm asking you to do a whole lot more. You're not a student now. You don't get to just show up with your gear and train. Now you have to show up with your gear and train, and I'm going to ask you to brief, and then I'm going to ask you to lead this stick, and then I'm going to ask you to clean up afterwards, and then you're the vehicle NCO, and there's a whole host of other things. Oh, and when's your ALS date? Where's your EPB? How many things have you done in this category? Like, yada, yada. The list goes on and on.
Yeah.
It's daunting, the amount of stuff that we will put on top of you. And it's pretty much immediately. So the goal is not to graduate. The goal is to get to your team and go deploy and go do the job and go do it well for as long as it is that you want to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think if you're like process oriented, which I see this a lot, like if you don't want that big letdown, then don't focus on getting a beret as like this ginormous thing, right? Like your goal should be to take this, your body, your brain, and everything that you have inside of you as far as you can. And like start developing those processes now and into the pipeline and further on. Take, one night every time you graduate a school and feel a little bit good about yourself and look back and reminisce about how far you've come and how much you've grown, and then get back into your process. Because you don't want that huge letdown, because it's going to be rad. But just like these guys that like win Super Bowls, they're like, what did we do? Like I took a week and I celebrated, and what do the best guys do?
Right
They're back at it.
Right.
So if you lose that process and that repetition and that schedule, it gets harder and harder to get it back, because we're going to keep throwing more and more stuff your way.
Yeah. And that's where you end up sort of evolving towards, I suppose, is that the winning is in the process. It's not in the outcome.
Yep.
If your winning is in the process, if you're constantly trying to be more efficient, if you're constantly trying to do better, if you're constantly trying to make the process itself better, you're going to win as a byproduct of all of those small things, the blocking and tackling, as we say, that go into just the basics of this stuff. And it applies across a wide range of crap. But if you can just do the basics, the winning comes as a output and not necessarily as this one penultimate event. Because like, I'll tell you what, that's why first enlistment dudes, they get that first deployment. And if that first deployment is every bill of goods that they've been sold, man, like if they're not kicking in doors and calling bombs in and, dudes saving dogs and saving bros, and, guys are calling in, guys are running drones and doing all this other stuff. Like, unless the sauce rides in on horses and we give patients, like, unless they get that sort of experience, that first deployment, I've seen guys just be like, well, I'm out.
Yeah. You lied to me.
Sometimes it's not even that bad. Like, this is a good story. My boy Dust Bunny, he was a young dude in England with us. He went through, I think it was when you could still do a 4-year enlistment. No, maybe it was 6 years, because he got in, he had a longer pipeline, so he had like a 2.5-year pipeline, and then got to England with 3 years left. So that's about right. So he got to England, he worked 3 years, he never got to go on a deployment. There was a rack and stack for the missions that we were supporting. And not because he wasn't good enough, just because of the where he was in the pipeline and some taskings that he got hit with, he never got to go deploy and do the really cool mission set that we were doing out there. So short story, he decides to get out after really 6 years, because it's exactly that. It came time for him to re-enlist, and he was just like, well, I mean, I trained. I went on a cool skiing trip in Norway. I got to see a lot, I got to go to the running of the bulls on leave in Spain. That was tight. He's like, but as far as PJ stuff, he was like, what really am I saying in for? To roll the dice and go to Cannon? Like,
Yeah.
or to, to do some of this. I don't even think you could go to Cannon at that time. It was so long ago at this point. But he was like, what am I going to do? Like, I could go look at other stuff. And thankfully he ended up getting back in and going into the guard. He's been at the same guard unit for a long time, just crushing it, like doing awesome shit. And good for him that he came back to it, but nobody could fault him. Like, we would talk about him all the time. Like, you can't fault a guy. Like, you told him he was going to go to point of injury. At that point, he was going to go to Afghanistan. He was going to go to point of injury. He was going to get into a gunfight. He was going to save an American. That's what you told him he was going to do. And he killed himself to try to go do it. He crushed himself. And then when you didn't even give him anywhere close to that.
Yeah, like, it's pretty rare, though, especially back then. Like, most guys.
It was. Dude, well, I mean, not back. So at that time, not really, because it was 2010, but it was in AFSOC, and it was the UCOM STTs. It was England and Japan, the 320th and the 321st, right? So we had different cycles where we were doing rotations with an Army. It was a SIF team at the time, and then CRIF team, and now they don't exist anymore. Yeah. But you would do rotations with them, and then you would go hop on torch rotations, and you'd support the task force. And between those two, like, that's a pretty good year, man. Like, you train for a spin up and then go and actually go out with the SIF team at the time. That's a pretty good thing, not just on alert, but on an actual trip. Mm-hmm. That's a pretty good time. Like, that's an experience that you will not get. Like, you will get skills from that a lot. I don't want to blow them. Well, they don't exist anymore. I guess I could tell you whatever they want. They deleted them. But anyway,